Hello and welcome back to another episode of FTB Sky Factory 2.5. My name is Twin Minds, and today, I'm not really sure, but I've got a couple things to cover, so let's get to it. First things first, I want to make some fluix, because I kind of ran out while I was preparing here. So you throw those three in there, and you get the fluix crystal out. Along with an achievement, because it's the first time I've bothered getting all of these achievements. In fact, if you look here, I haven't really gotten all that many AE achievements yet, but I plan to get a couple of those covered today. Alright, well, let's get started just a little bit. First thing after that, I guess, would be to show off some decoration. I have gotten a little bit going here. Still work in progress, but it is moving along. I'm not quite sure what to do with this entryway just yet, but I think my Thaumcraft hut is done. Yeah, I think it looks pretty nice. Expanded it just slightly and moved the altar in just a little bit to make it symmetrical, just so it was kind of dead center. Things looked a little bit funky if it wasn't center. Yeah, it's great wood logs, some skystone blocks just for decoration, and up here we even have warded glass, which is the Thaumcraft invention. It's actually impervious from being broken. Nothing I do will break it. You have to have a wand to break it, and only the person who places it can break it with a wand. So that's a way that you can protect some of your stuff in multiplayer, and I think this could even be used against the Wither. I haven't tested it yet, but I do believe that's the way it is. But yeah, it looks nice either way. And then I got my stairs going up here. Ultimately, I think I will enclose this, the whole thing actually, so it's more of a building rather than a platform. But still working on it. So, fluix needs to be ground down into the powder form. Like that. And then, I don't remember what I was making with them. Let's see what I've got. Yes, I was making more of these cores. Those aren't the cores I want. These are the cores I want. Just a couple more, because why not? Alright, so, let's get back to showing off a little bit more of the progress I've made. You'll notice my cows are gone, because I did move them into the last millennium, as is my farm also gone. So let's go to the last millennium here and take a look at that. Brace yourself, I have made quite a few changes. So, I have industrialized the last millennium. His face mask kind of gave me a little bit of inspiration. It looked very industrial, so I thought, you know, let's just change up this whole platform to an industrial form. So the only thing I don't like about this so far is these lights in the center. This platform is just a little bit too big, so there were some dark spots in here, and monsters do spawn in here, so I had to light it up, and torches didn't seem right. Well, I forgot to remove that one torch here. But yeah, torches didn't seem right, so I put those up there for now. Maybe I'll find a different solution later. But I've got my platform going here. I've got my farm over here. It's pretty much a direct transport of the original farm, but I did expand it to an additional one. I just need to get another unbreakable hoe to get this thing moving. And below here, I have made room for all of these growth pulsars, in case I choose to go all the way down, or at least a little bit down, to make those things grow faster. And then over here is the prime real estate, the cow factory, I guess. I moved all my cows in here and then some. So we've got 9 cows per floor so far. I actually left the back open in case I want to expand out further, because ultimately each of these sections with the giant fans are roughly identical, so I can just keep plopping down additional sections. And same thing up here, except for apparently I missed a light. Where are you, light? Haha, right there. There. Now it's almost all lit up. Alright, so to show off what these things do, first off I have my Tesseract in here taking energy. So I went from the harvesters to autonomous activators, and I've got a fluid tank below. So what happens here is the bucket that is empty stays up in this corner until the cow is ready to be milked. The autonomous activator simulates that right click to milk the cow, and then my filter here does not suck out an empty bucket, so it will suck out the full bucket, and it plops it down into this tank. This tank from Ender.io takes in filled buckets and fills its internal tank, and then outputs empty buckets, which then get pulled back up to the top ready to go. If I were to put in an empty bucket here, it would fill it. But I'm not doing that route, so I'm not worried about that. My next step is to figure out what to do with all of these things. Because previously I had the casting basins ready to go to make blocks out of all these materials. Some of these don't do block form. Like these gelid cryotheum here doesn't do a block form of anything, it's just a fluid to use. So not all of these are going to need to be processed that way. Over here is obsidian, so I can use this in multiple ways, and that's where my conundrum is. If I pump all of this into block form to make obsidian, then I can't use the liquid form readily for things that I can mix it with. Not a huge deal for obsidian, but it is a bigger deal for some of the other liquids. Primarily, let's see, which one is it? Destabilized redstone. If I pour this into block form, it gives me an actual block of redstone, which is great, but it is also used in crafting in liquid form. I could remelt it later, but it's handy to have some of it already melted so I don't have to wait for it. So that's basically what this is, and I've got a whole ton of cows. And this is maybe half of my cows. Maybe. So I'm definitely going to have to expand this at some point or another, but for right now I wanted to get a good start so we can have this thing going. As for the giant fans, though, I'm sure with all those cows it gets a little bit rank in there, so it's keeping air flowing, I'm sure. So that is beginnings, I guess, of my last millennium transport here. Let's get back in and try to do something else. So the something else that I wanted to do is start up some autocrafting. And to do that, I need to get some of the components actually built for that. So to do autocrafting in applied energistics, you need multiple things, actually. You need molecular assemblers, where the materials get put into, and this kind of acts as the crafting table of sorts. So let's get a couple of these. Turns out I need actual crafting tables. Let's get a few crafting tables. I don't know how many I will be needing yet. This system is relatively expandable, so I'm not too concerned about it yet, about how big I want to make it, because I can always make it bigger later. So, molecular assemblers, and I need ME interfaces. And then we need these crafting units. These are the kind of building blocks of the crafting system. Again, also expandable, so I'm not worried about how many I'm making just yet. These crafting units alone don't do anything. You use them to make these other components. So the other components are the crafting co-processing unit. What this does is it allows you to do multiple crafts at the same time. So for each one of these co-processing units, it can do an additional craft at the same time. So if I were to put both of these in there, I could do two crafts at once. For auto-crafting, that's a big deal if you're making things that require a lot of subcomponents, like wood to planks to sticks, and then 70 sticks to make one thing kind of deal. Those can be covered in a little bit, though. And then you also need storage. These crafting storage units are to actually store the materials that you'll be using to craft. So let's get some of these crafted. I'm going to go with the 4Ks for now, which means I need a few of these. I think 6 is the right number. Yeah, there we go. And then 4 of these. Good. Next gen crafting. Apparently it didn't care about my coprocessing units, but it cared about the crafting storage. So, then we need a cable to get connected. Don't really need a cable, you can put anything adjacent on an ME network, but it does have that channel limit. And again, this is going to be a very temporary setup, just to show you how it goes. So let's do a cable. And then the crafting coprocessing unit doesn't connect. What about the crafting storage unit? That connects, alright. And then they do need to be in a square, if I remember right. Like so. So this one crafting unit, I guess, consists of two coprocessing units and two 4K crafting storage spaces. Now the 4K is important because the larger the crafting recipe, the more items are used, and it has to store all of those items in here. And that works very similar to how the drive works in storing items in here. So you have to make sure that you have enough space to store all the items that you want. If you're crafting something like, for example, these solar panels, where each solar panel needs, or each second level solar panel needs 8 of these, you need to be able to store all of the materials to make all 8 of these, plus the one of these, and whatever other materials are required. So if I were to go with the 3rd or the 4th level, suddenly I'm needing 64 of these solar panels, and then 8 of these, etc. So it can get pretty crazy, and you got to make sure you can store it all. So I will ultimately have a bunch of these. I just don't quite know what my end goal is yet, so I'm not really worrying too much about the final placement here. And then these interfaces need to go against these. And again, this is not a very well optimized setup, but assuming you place the molecular assemblers right next to an interface, the interface will store patterns, which is your crafting recipes, and then it will use the interface to throw the items up into the molecular assembler and then take them back into the interface to put it back in the network. So there are much more optimized ways of setting this up, but this is just the beginning here. Now, those are quite a few components, but I'm still not done yet, because the next step is a crafting pattern, which, it's in here somewhere. That's an encoded pattern. I need the blank pattern. Fine. Blank pattern, here we go. So, it takes any of the Certus quartz and then quartz glass. I don't want to use my charged yet. So let's take a couple of these patterns. Then you need a pattern terminal, which is a crafting terminal, which is a regular terminal, which is an illuminate panel. Hey, I've got all that. Good. Actually, I had a terminal already. That's fine. I will need another one anyway. Crafting terminal, crafting table I don't have yet. Ah, I do. Alright. So let's get that going. Just one. Hey, look, another achievement there. And then this one. Crafting Maestro, apparently. So this pattern terminal needs to go on something. Sure, let's put it here for now. And apparently that is the max of my 8 channels. Because I believe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think I've just hit 8 total, and it's counting it as 1. Oh, that's fine. Alright, so pattern terminal. Put your pattern in here. And you know what? Let's do the same thing that is kind of a standard to start off with here. You make a pattern for the patterns, so you can make more patterns. So you shift-click the recipe in here, and I could pull out a blank pattern here if I wanted to, or I can encode it. So this shows that I've got an encoded pattern, and if you hold shift, it shows the item that it's going to make. In this case, not much difference. But I need to put this pattern in here. And then, if you look up the item that you want to craft, you can tell it how many you want. And then it automatically chooses an appropriate crafting CPU to work with. And boom, I've got one. Wonderful. So, that is the first step. The next step that I wanted to have all this auto-crafting for is to make some things. So let's go with a deep storage unit, which requires hardened cache, factory machine block, plastic sheets. So, I can teach it how to make plastic sheets. I can teach it how to make the machine block here. I can teach it how to make the hardened cache. And then I can teach it how to make the whole deep storage unit. But there's a challenge here. This did not pull in the items. To do the crafting recipe, you need to actually have the items in question to actually do it. So let's put these in here. I think you could shift click. Yep, there we go. So now I can craft up the 4 caches. And then I can craft up the frame, was it? It was not frame, it was factory machine block. Good. Alright. And then I can do the recipe, because I've got all the items. Perfect. Now, one of the things that you have to worry about with this system is the number of things that can be done simultaneously. If this thing is busy crafting up these caches and the machine blocks, it's going to have a challenge making the deep storage unit. Now, I could actually spread these out so I can make the caches at the same time as the machine blocks. So that's one thing to worry about. I'm not too worried about optimizing it just yet, because there's not too much that my system can actually do currently. So now, if I close that out and tell it to make me 10, it's telling me I don't have enough invar and I don't have enough wood. Invar's something I'll have to do later, but wood, I probably should have enough of that. So let's do 5 for now. And I have enough of everything. Start. Now you can see the items getting crafted up in here. And there's the 5. Awesome. Now, the reason I wanted these is this wall of mess here. This wall of mess gets filled fast. You can tell I've got my 16 out of 16 stacks of 64 Enderium blocks. Ultimately, what I want is I want most of the stuff that I'm going to have a lot of to go into deep storage units. Deep storage units can store a ton of stuff. It's something like 2 billion items. It's just insane numbers of stuff. And that's one of the goals in the book, is to fill up a deep storage unit of apparently 2 billion things. I don't know how I'm going to do that yet, but I'll figure something out. So I don't know exactly how I want to situate this, but I need to have somewhere for all these things to go before I hook them up, because all of these are coming from the cows for the most part. And if I hook them up now, these things are already pretty much full, and they're just going to start going into the network and filling up the network. So I would rather not happen, so I needed a place for them to go kind of as a secondary. I kind of want for this setup probably going somewhere else eventually. Might move it downstairs or something like that. This will be the primary storage. This will be hooked up to the network. I'll be able to see the nuggets, the ingots, and the blocks. But once it fills up, I want it to secondarily go into a deep storage unit, so as not to fill up the network. So to do that, I will need to hook this up, and it'll be just kind of a temporary show here. if I can cable. So if I put this here, and then I get a storage bus, do I have one already crafted? I do not have one already crafted. So if I take a storage bus, which apparently requires a sticky piston. Alright, ME storage bus. So this here is the primary storage bus that takes care of the wall. If I put this as highest priority, which it kind of 1000 is about as high priority as I care to go, anything lower priority will get the items next. So if I put that there and set that to, I don't know, 100, I guess, this will get filled up with whatever gets overflowed from here. But since the deep storage units can only take one item at a time, I'm going to need to have a bunch of these. Like, a lot. That's why I wanted to autocraft them, because I'm going to need a lot of them. So if I do this, and then do a storage bus on every single one of them, and then set them to whichever item I want, like the Enderium block, for example, because that one I know is full, now I have an Enderium block, and I can lock it, and this will forever be Enderium blocks. Pretty sure. Yeah. That stays as Enderium blocks. So now the storage bus knows that Enderium blocks can go here, and any more that go into the system, if that drawer is full, will go in here instead. Now, that's all well and good. That handles the overflow. But what if I wanted to keep this drawer full, and I pull out a stack of these things? Well, it's just going to start getting filled very slowly. Whoops. And that's going to stay there for a while. This is going to get filled very slowly by the cows, but if I want it to be filled instantly, I will have to do some sort of setup to get the items out of the deep storage unit and back into the drawer. So, yeah, I don't quite know how I want to do that yet. I have a couple inspirations to draw from, but that's probably going to be later once I figure out where I even want this thing to go. Because I don't want to set anything up right now if I'm going to move the whole mess. So yeah, that takes care of my auto crafting. And I think that might do it from here. I know I mentioned I was going to tackle this thing next, but I got a little bit sidetracked. So that might be a later time. I might even move that into the last millennium as well, just because it's kind of an eyesore. Yeah, it's definitely an eyesore. So, I think that does it for now. I'm pretty sure I covered everything here. One of the other reasons I wanted to move the cows, actually, is so that I can have more cows spawning in here. I was hitting the entity limit, so no more animals were spawning in here. As soon as I moved out 3 of the cows, I got 3 new animals in my grass field there. So it was definitely something that needed to be done. Otherwise, I'm never going to get all the cows I want. However, I have a lot of cows. I have a ton of cows. These 3 are the only ones that are not filled. The rest of them are filled. I've got lava, I've got pink slime, purifying fluid, biofuel, bedrockium. I'm planning on making use of that bedrockium at some point soon here. But yeah, I've got a whole ton of stuff, and I want to start making use of them. But I don't quite know how just yet. Some of them will generate me energy. Some of them will make other materials for me that I have to process in unique ways. So I'll figure that out later. But for right now, I will leave it here. See ya.